Looking back on the week that was and forward to the week ahead. It's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Here are your hosts, Brian Drake and Dwayne McFarland.
All across the fantasy universe, welcome one and all to the Fantasy Football Hustle, powered by the good folks over at Pro Football Focus. I'm your host, Brian Drake. You can follow me on Twitter at Drake Fantasy. Be sure to check me out every Sunday, 7 to 9 Eastern, as I have the most fun allowed on the radio. I host PFF Postgame on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. It's a blast. I have a changing group of fantasy experts that come on and hang out with me every single week. So check me out there. But I'm so glad you're here with me on the hustle. It's a Drake's Take solo edition. I've got a couple of things that are burning a hole, in my mind that I want to get off my chest. And I got some fantasy takes as we head into week number 10. Let me first start with an apology. I sat here all year in 2021 and all through the offseason, and I told you that Jalen Hurts can't throw the football. Well, after a great offseason and some really good coaching, Jalen Hurts ranks 5th in the NFL in completion percentage of quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks at 67.5. Last year, folks, he was QB 26 in that same category, 61.3%. Now, all year, I banged on Hurts. He can't throw. He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Well, he wasn't accurate because, he wasn't. So I was kind of right there. But it also helps to have A.J. Brown in the mix. And Philly isn't playing hide the quarterback anymore. Hurts is throwing the ball. He has 4 weeks with more than 30 attempts. 2 of those weeks, he's completed more than 72% of his passes. Last season, after the Eagles changed their offense following a Week 7 loss to the Raiders, Hurts attempted 30 passes one time in a regular season game. And in that game, he completed 45% of his balls. That's terrible. So the story here is a kid who has taken to coaching and improved. We saw it with Josh Allen after his first year, and we've seen it with Tua in Miami. I'm happy to see Hurts improve because the Eagles are undefeated, and I'm an Eagles fan. But he's also going to likely get a contract extension in the offseason. And for fantasy, he's killing it. He's averaging 24.5 points per game, which ranks 3rd in the NFL among quarterbacks. He was the perfect choice for smart drafters who waited a little bit on the quarterback. So I'll take my medicine. I'll say kudos to you, Mr. Jalen Hurts. You've quite nicely turned things around and became a full-on fantasy football quarterback, not just a runner. All right, let's go to Indianapolis. Colts are in full-on tank mode. They benched Matt Ryan, so he doesn't trigger injury-related guarantees in his contract for 2023. They fired their offensive coordinator a few weeks ago, and now they've just shown Frank Reich, their head coach, or former head coach, I should say, the door. I've said for weeks on this program and anywhere else you hear me, the Colts are tanking for a top draft pick. They need a quarterback. Jim Irsay has his fingerprints all over this. And they've done it before. This is suck for luck 2.0. But currently, they've got some work to do because as of this recording, they own the 14th pick in the draft. That's not going to land you an elite prospect. A top 4 pick will, and that's what these moves are ensuring. Indy steps into week 10 with former center and recent high school coach Jeff Saturday as their head man. They also tagged some kid who was working in an Arby's a week ago to call their plays. This is a joke. Now, Monday, everyone was dunking on the Colts. Oh, this is an awful hire. And then typical Twitter fashion, people do an about face when they hear Saturday's press conference. Now, Jeff's a nice guy, and he's a pretty smart dude, but it doesn't change the fact that he was put in this position because the owner wants him to fail. Not to mention, they didn't consider much more qualified assistants in-house or any minority candidates. The NFL doesn't really care about all that. It's just lip service they give us. The owners can do whatever the hell they want. This offense is led by, and I use that term loosely, Sam Ehlinger. He's awful. This is like Division II football out there. Now, I'm shocked that Jonathan Taylor's even trying to play again. What's the point? Why risk your best player in a lost season? So Deion Jackson is a stronghold in all formats. This is a team that's going to run, and run some more. Have you ever seen Ehlinger try to throw the football? It's harder than me trying to get the word throwing out right there. Even if JT plays, his ankle's ripe for a re-aggravation. It's a mess. I'm sorry for any of you guys out there who have Colts on your roster. I'd be trying to sell them for pennies on the dollar. All right, a lot of hype about Twitter Blue this week, right? People are up in arms about individuals having the opportunity to pay $8 to have a blue check mark. I'll give you my side of the story on this. I saw a couple of friends in the industry, like Josh Larkey of the 33rd team. He's been on the show. He put out a tweet about how he's paying for Twitter Blue. And boy, oh boy, people went crazy. The pitchforks were out for Larkey. I felt bad for the kid. I paid the $8. I did it yesterday. I want to see what it's all about. I was never a verified user on Twitter, but I'm interested in, number one, can this expand my reach? Number two, I get to edit tweets because oftentimes when I'm creating, world-class tweets on the shitter, I screw up something or I leave something out or I'm tweeting while I'm driving. And now I have the opportunity to edit that. That's awesome. For me, that's worth the $8 alone. If it's not worth it and it doesn't expand my reach, it doesn't allow me to create longer videos or things that make me a better creator, I can dump it, right? I'm no huge Elon Musk fan, but, I'm going to see what happens here. I use Twitter all the time. It's a big part of my fantasy, workspace here as a content creator. So if you want to pay the $8, great. If you don't want to pay it, also great. Let's be honest, this platform probably isn't going to be here in another 2 years. So you're just throwing $8 out the window. But I tend to drink a lot of Red Bulls. So it's like me buying, 2 Red Bulls for a month. My wife will be happy if I cut down on my Red Bull consumption, and maybe it helps me grow my audience, which in turn will help me land, a bigger, better job down the road. All right, there's a couple of teams out there that I have to talk about. Is it a surprise that squads like the Packers, the Cardinals, the Bucks, or the Broncos are struggling? They all have one thing in common. Their quarterbacks are all extremely unlikable. Locker room leadership matters. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm in those rooms, but it's plain to see from body language and the videos of these guys interacting with their teammates that there is a major disconnect. Brady missed a month of camp, and we know he's got every other problem in the world going on at home. Rodgers looks like he'd rather be anywhere else than Green Bay. Kyler's screaming at teammates, and he's got horrific body language. And Russ, my God, where do we begin with him? Now look at QBs who are thriving. Young guys on teams like Jalen Hurts in Philly, we just talked about. Josh Allen in Buffalo. Joe Burrow with the Bengals. Guys who are team first, leaders of men. Their teams are all in on their success. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why some teams fail. If you've ever had a terrible manager at work or some asshole coworker, you know the drain it can have on your performance. The NFL is no different. How about some bad offensive lines? Some of these same teams are struggling running the football, and it's not because the running backs are bad. Offensive lines are an issue in the NFL because of poor planning and allocating money elsewhere. Look at the Rams and Bucks. These rosters are loaded. You got superstars all over the place. They couldn't run the ball versus your grandmother. Leonard Fournette is averaging 3.4 yards a carry. As a team, the Rams are averaging 3.2. Both squads just bail on the run after a few attempts. In Pittsburgh, Najee Harris was a first-round pick a year ago. He lit the league on fire. Now, albeit with a foot issue in the rearview mirror, he's averaging 3.3 yards per carry, and he only has 72 yards before contact this year. That's awful. Last year, he rushed for 1,200 yards at a clip of 3.9 yards per carry. In fantasy, we really do need to do a much better job of evaluating offensive lines, isolating these situations. In Tampa, they lost 3 interior offensive linemen. Why would we think they'd be any good? As your trade deadline approaches, be cognizant of players with these swinging gates in front of them. All right, quickly, I want to touch on Tua Tagovailoa. Now, Tua's having a great season. He looks amazing. His coach is putting him in a position to win. Josh McDaniels, coach of the year. It helps to have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But here's what I can't get behind. You can't say boo about Tua on Twitter without everybody coming after you. But Tua's playing great. Look at the team. They're winning. I get that. But the knock on Tua coming into the year was he doesn't have a strong arm. And he doesn't. You can watch games and see throw after throw where he's underthrowing wide receivers. They're stopping, coming back to the football. He missed Jalen Waddle on what would have been a walk-in touchdown in week 9. Waddle had to stop along the sideline, gave the defender a chance to come over and break it up. People don't want to hear that. Tua's a Dolphin, but he walks on water. All right, how about we have a little fun here and we look towards week 10. Well, looking back at some of the players that kind of lit our lineups on fire. It's a segment I call Hate the Drake. The Washington backfield, they're first up on the list. Last week, we thought Antonio Gibson was coming into his own after claiming this pass catcher role, right? Well, last Sunday, he was back to his old self. 11 carries for 36 yards, a pair of catches for only 11 on 3 targets. His 6.7 PPR points was barely better than his backfield running mate, Brian Robinson, who ran 13 times for 44 yards. Now, Robinson's a negative in the pass game, and Sunday he really was. He had negative 7 yards receiving. Since returning to the lineup, Robinson hadn't had a week where he's averaged 3.6 yards per carry. This Washington offense struggles to maintain drives with Taylor Heineke under center, and really neither one is a guy you're super excited to play weekly. But here in week 10, they play the Eagles on Monday night, and the Birds are without Jordan Davis. He is a mountain of a man. And the Eagles look a little vulnerable on the ground. But we have to ask ourselves, will the Commanders be in a game script to even run the ball? Gibson should be a better play, though, because here in week 10, he's taken over the pass game role from an injured J.D. McKissick. This sets up perfectly for Antonio to see maybe 5 targets and be an upside PPR play. How about David Montgomery? Now, this is the kind of what we expect from Montgomery at this point. He got 14 carries, which is in line with the 15 he's gotten every single week since week 6. But if he doesn't score, he's really tough to have in your lineup. And Sunday, he had 36 yards of rushing. It's the Justin Fields show now, and Montgomery's just a low-level supporting actor. There's nothing more of a kind of desperation play. He got 5.4 points last week. Khalil Herbert, he wasn't really any better, only 2.3 points himself. But boy, oh boy, this week we got the Lions coming to town. They can't stop anyone. Per PFF, the Lions are 28th in the league, allowing 36 runs of 10 or more. All right, I can get behind that. This game sets up well for a Montgomery bounce back. To me, he's an RB2 this week with a better than usual chance of scoring. All right, Deion Jackson, this hurts. We talked about him a few moments ago. He was my guy. All last week, I was pumping him up on Twitter. He laid a massive egg, but it's not totally on Jackson. The Colts offense stinks. Sam Ehlinger is not an NFL quarterback, and they're tanking to get a top pick. Remember, we just discussed this. Jackson did leave the game. He was banged up momentarily, but the big issue here is Ehlinger, and he can't get the ball to anybody in the pass game. We've seen Jackson catch 10 balls in a game, but that was with Matt Ryan under center. Sunday, Jackson only saw 3 targets, and that's unacceptable, especially the game scripts these guys play in. I'd like to say it's going to turn around, but with Ehlinger, it's that bad. And now God knows who is going to call these plays. If you want a bonus hate the Drake player, his teammate Michael Pittman went 3 for 22, only good for 5.2 PPR points. It's hard to start anybody in Indy with this quarterback play. Now, JT is likely back this week, but I wouldn't go dropping Deion Jackson just yet. Whatever this coaching staff is, they're likely going to run the ball like it's 1955. I don't trust Taylor's ankle to hold up. So down the road, again, this is a suck for luck 2.0. I can see Taylor being shut down again. Is there a more polarizing player than Gabe Davis? In the preseason, you could go on Twitter and it was just people, cats and dogs going at each other about this guy. You know, I try to stay out of it. I don't really care that much about Gabe Davis. Through 9 weeks, he has more games with 3 or fewer catches than he does total touchdowns. Sunday was another week with 2 catches and less than 40 yards. I get the monster upside, but if he doesn't hit a long touchdown, he absolutely kills you. That's the trade-off. It's huge spike week or it's nothing. There's no middle ground with Gabe Davis. Now, you're not going to drop Gabe Davis, but I can see you sliding him to your bench until he shows you something. And now, of course, Josh Allen's iffy for week 10. We can't be confident in this Bills pass game. Case Keenum would be the starter. Now, if Case Keenum doesn't make you feel all warm and fuzzy, I don't know what will. So to me, Gabe Davis is a sit this week against the Vikings. It's hard to pick on DeAndre Swift because he's banged up and, you want to play the guy. But if he's active, you got to produce. This 5-touch nonsense, it's not helping the Lions and it's not helping our fantasy teams. Just sit out and get healthy. You can't play Swift with any confidence right now in fantasy. He scored 8 points on Sunday thanks to 3 catches for 40. But really, what are we doing here? This is a terrible situation for somebody we spent the second-round pick on. Now, Swift is at the Bears, who allow the second most rushing yards in the league. But will it even matter? They'll likely just pound Jamal Williams into the ground. They're using Swift like a satellite back, and if he's not healthy, the snaps are going to be limited, and that caps his upside. Play him only if you don't have a better option. Now, I hope nobody had to start Mike Gesicki with 6 teams on bye last week, but if you did, I'm sorry. Gesicki collected only 1 catch for 3 yards, and he hasn't produced more than 3 receptions since week 6. The Dolphins simply don't throw the ball enough to Gesicki to ever want to start him. Leave him on your waiver wire. With the news now that Darren Waller is headed to IR, I'd go pick up Foster Moreau. All right, folks, I want you to go over to your app store, download the Top Prop Fantasy app, and use my promo code Drake. This is a great new company that I'm aligned with, and you see me promoting them on Twitter. Basically, all you have to do, you go on their app, use my promo code Drake. I'll get you a first-time deposit bonus of up to $50. Here's what I want you to do. You go on there, swipe right, you swipe left. You guys are doing it every day on your Tinder app. Come on, I know what you're up to. All right? Who's going to score more fantasy points? If you think it's DJ Moore, boom, you go this way. You think it's Drake London, you go the opposite way. It's a head-to-head fantasy promotion I love to be behind. So again, use my promo code Drake over at Top Prop Fantasy. How about Underdog? You like doing snake drafts, right? You like doing prop bets. We've got a deal with our friends at underdogfantasy.com. Download the app. Use our promo code HUSTLE. We'll match your first-time deposit up to $100. Head on over to pff.com. We love being aligned with those guys. Get a subscription for the rest of the season. Use promo code HUSTLE. Use their new PFF Plus app. It's fantastic. You get all the articles, the rankings, everything you've come to know and love from Pro Football Focus. With our promo code HUSTLE, saves you 25%. And if you want some Hustle swag, I had guys tweeting at me this week at FF Hustle. They were wearing their Hustle hats at some NBA games. Go over to veridianglobal.com, search Fantasy Football Hustle, find a shirt, find a hat. It's awesome. It's great stuff. I rock some of it myself. It's really cool. So this was just a little solo hustle. I got a couple of folks jumping in here asking some questions, so I'll get to that. Guy asks, start 1 in PPR, Sutton, Deonta Foreman, or Pollard. It's Tony Pollard. I'm starting Tony Pollard. I don't care if Ezekiel Elliott is coming back this week. I want him in my lineup. Another question, DJ Moore or Pollard at flex? Going to have some weather issues in that game in Carolina. I'm starting Tony Pollard. Another question. Someone offered me Jamar Chase for Stevenson in a PPR. What are your thoughts? Well, if you need to win now, I'm okay with that deal. If you have enough wide receivers, I'm cool with it. Stevenson, he's not exactly setting the world on fire every single week, but he's getting passing game usage. Jamar Chase, we don't know how long he's going to be out. If you need to win today, I'm okay with the move. I love these questions. If you want to get in on it whenever we go live, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Search Fantasy Football Hustle. Click that alert notification bell. You'll know when we go live, and you can ask questions to us in our live chat. Trey asks, full PPR, Judy or Josh Palmer? Right there, I'm going to go Josh Palmer. They simply don't have many other options in the Chargers pass game this week. Sean asks, start 1 in half PPR. D Johnson, which could be a million guys, Pickens or Rondell Moore. For the upside, I would say Pickens, Rondell Moore, to me, safer floor. Trey also asked, Damian Harris, is he droppable in a 12-team PPR? Again, it depends who you're dropping him for. If you're never going to start the guy, I'm okay with it. I know he's having some injury issues. So, if there's a better option out there, by all means, go for it. Folks, follow me on Twitter at Drake Fantasy. The show is at FF Hustle. I love answering your questions all throughout the week. So many of you guys hit me up. Thank you so much for being a part of the hustle. We enjoy doing things here live for you each and every week. Next week, we'll be back with our pal Joe Dolan from fantasypoints.com. He's going to ride shotgun with me here and talk a little fantasy football with you. So until next week, good luck, everybody. And remember to never get out hustled.